Let's talk about now. You've been doing a lot in Asia. You just put out that ebook. So why Asia? I mean, you were raised in America, I assume, right? And now you've
Tampa,
been
Florida,
traveled. You've been traveling a lot through the region.
Yeah.
And what is there anything you can tell us about your desire to come out to this area of the world?
Yeah, I mean, huge. For one thing, it's very different. Like, and I was a huge, like, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of video games. So Japan was always very much, Japan loomed very, very large in my young mind. So I was sort of, a lot of behavioral conditioning there, where it's like good things come from Japan, and then I learned about Pearl Harbor, a lot of weird feelings, right? Sometimes not. Japanese students, I still want you. Good times. Anyway, so there's that, and so I took. When I was in high school, I took courses in pre-modern Japan, and because how else do you learn about what ninjas really were about, right? You gotta. But that I'm not joking. Like I was like I really want to learn about ninjas and samurais because they're awesome. And then I dated a Korean girl. And it was very interesting because we had such strong differences. We had such there were cultural issues that I just baffled me. And so that really sparked it.
Was that in America?
That was in America.
So how long had she been in America up to that point?
She was born in Korea. Came here when she was very young, but her parents were Korean. And,
okay, right.
And
so literally cultural. It wasn't language issues or anything?
No, not at all. It's more of a my girlfriend now is more of a language issue because she came when she was 17 and like,
still got the accent.
Yeah. But I mean, anyway, I don't want to talk about her, but she thinks she's got more of an accent than she does. But that kind of, I guess Jenny the Korean girl was my gateway Asian, where I it's now become like in terms of, I mean, I'm writing a novel right now, and the protagonist is half Korean, and I've been back and forth to Asia. I find the differences, and the differences are fascinating, especially because they highlight the similarities in cultures, and especially as from Love Systems' perspective, where you see such strong cultural differences. When Love Systems works, when dating science, whatever you want to call it, I'm used to my own brand, forgive me, but when it works, you're like, God damn, that's a human thing. That's the moment where you go, wow, this would work effing anywhere. So like it's because I've done it in Europe, but Europe it feels like we've got more shared cultural background. So when I go to in Hong Kong and I have seductions where the girl just does not speak English, and I'm like, this is great because this is a real milestone. I could not have done this, and so a lot of that's mixed up with being a writer and kind of having an artistic perspective where seeing humanity and seeing people as people from the widest different spectrum that exists,
One thing that just occurred to me is that you've got this great identity of a really hard-assed Marine, and you've got this comedy background, but then you have this very creative side that is a sort of romanticism. Like you do some photography now. You're writing novels, and this is a really well-rounded identity. I don't know if anyone's probably know that about yourself, but it's one thing that we try to emphasize in the academy. Just that if you focus on computer engineering and you get paid very well for the specialty that you do in that area, you're not going to be very relatable to other people. And one thing is, we all had these dreams when we were kids. Probably no one dreamed about being a computer engineer when he was 6 years old. But we had lots of other dreams. We wanted to see the world, and we wanted to explore other cultures. We played video games. And you've now taken this onto yourself as part of your identity. You've gone to these places and explored these.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing is especially as I've gotten older and I don't know how I'm 30, so I don't know where you guys come from, but for me, I've had friends get married, and I've now seen enough of my friends have kids, and I've had a handful of friends die, and I'm more conscious of the fact that my time on this earth is limited. So I say, even though I already had a very strong relationship to fear, I say no to very few things. I very much want to embrace things. So the fact, like, I was talking to my father who was getting a degree in German literature, and he was talking about how scary it was being in Germany because people would, even though he speaks pretty good German, he still would be lost in the sauce, and it would really, it would make him clam up, whereas I'm like, yes, I want to dive into that. I want to be around people who I have no idea what they're saying, and like read their body language, see how they eat, see how they worship, see how all this stuff, and then try to connect, like try to build love in that situation, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And also, over time, just Asian women have kind of become a really dominant feature in my psychosexual
No,
activity.
that's
So
Yeah. One thing that a lot of guys are going to want to know is that you mentioned this, that the girls don't speak English,
Mm-hmm.
and do you like that even more? So one question I get asked a lot is, how do you build attraction in a woman who doesn't speak the same language as you?
So with what I've always gotten away with is just really simple English and really strong statements of desire. What actually happens is that humans will always use all the channels of communication that are available to them. So when you can see someone's face, you are going to read their facial expressions in order to get communication. When you can see someone's hands moving, you are going to watch their hands. When you can see their body language, you see whether they're slumping, whether they're standing up straight, you're going to use the speed of their movements. You're going to judge all that stuff when you're interacting with them, and that is another channel of communication. So there's this interesting thing that happens where basically a game in another language is like the opposite of text messaging, where you just are removing the verbal component. So it's interesting because if nonverbal is necessary, then it almost becomes like a straight line, because every time I've noticed that when it's a really direct nonverbal approach, as long as you do, you kind of have to have. I have a really good intuition about push-pull because I've been doing this a long time, so it's instinct at a lot of levels. Like I have a sixth sense about when, like, there's muscle tension, she's pulling away, and I know how hard to push her and all that stuff. And that's one of those. It's a mandatory skill if you want to get good at this. But once I have that, then that becomes a lot of the language and becomes a replacement for and can often be better than traditional.
Yeah,
language.
well, Korea is a good example. My ex-wife was Korean. And then, so I learned a lot about Korean culture, and I love the food. But yeah, that was a long time ago. But then I had quite a few flings, like 2, 3, 4 months with Korean girls whose English was really not very good. If you get really good at being very direct with your intentions, then there's very little verbal content there, as far as I'm concerned. I don't say fancy things with my words, and in fact, when I had to meet people in Chinese, my Chinese vocabulary at that time, especially in this area, like I could talk about philosophy and history in Chinese, but when I'm talking about love and romance, my vocabulary shrank down to like an 11-year-old. So it was like very basic, like. And that was pretty much it, and that was it. But it's not 93% communication, but that study from the 1960s from UCLA is 93% likability. And that's really what we're trying to get to. You don't actually need to communicate rational thoughts where she can write it down and conclude, therefore I like him. It's just an emotion. So I've actually just recently, last month, shot a product that's coming out later on how to make her feel how you feel. And almost all of it is based on body language, tonality, and mirror neuron. So learning how to focus your emotions and then convey them through your eyes.
Totally.
And your facial expressions.
Yeah.
Bringing in the science of micro expressions and all the Paul Ekman work, that you can actually convey this feeling of, oh, I like you. And you just throw in little words like beautiful and sexy, and they know what these English words are. And the rest is done just through your look. Like,
Oh, man, I wish there was. I mean, I can't wait to see your product because I think that's there's something so magical about that when you've got it, when you can really like harvest chemistry, you know, because you know what it is, you know what it's like, where you're having a conversation and it's 10, 15 minutes and you're like, this isn't going anywhere, this sucks, or you're like, well, she's cool, but I'm just not feeling it. When you do feel it and it's great and it's going back and forth, it doesn't necessarily mean like, you know, grab her hand and put it on Gigantor. What it means is, it means that like just recognize that you're having that effect and you should let it empower you. And that, I think the mirror neuron thing is really is amazing because and the reason I say I went is because I know and you know that thing when you go we've got flow, and the better you get with game, the better you are at sort of accelerating flow and having it be less about
Totally.
and
I've created a whole class in the Aura Academy on flow. It's actually called, one of the words is flow and attraction mindset.
Oh, yeah.
I just look at the Csikszentmihalyi and all the research there. It's an amazing concept. If you guys haven't, if whoever's watching this has not looked into Csikszentmihalyi's concept of flow, go Google it. There's a lot of really helpful
I haven't, and
there.
I'm going to go Google it, so you should too.
How have you seen the differences between coaching men in Asia, and you've done quite a few boot camps here, are there any differences between coaching men in Asia and in America?
Totally.
What are those?
I would say that the concept of face has a big, like I would say that as a Westerner and as a white guy, like I don't know if I fully understand it, but I recognize that there is a in the West, success really they're a lot closer to defining success by following your dreams, and like, you know, you can find success in a lot of corners, whereas I think in Asia, success has a much more monetary tone to it,
right?
And and it's based more on the alphabet soup after your name and
which has paid off for me. I mean, I've been able to reap the
Ph.D.
benefits of
motherfucker
that.
right here, yeah,
So
exactly,
it feels nice, but
exactly. I mean, but the face thing and the I think it's a Confucian thing, the sort of shared values and the idea of like
communality, like, the community.
Yeah, going back to the community and much less about the individual. So what that means is one of the central things that I believe about my class is it's 3 days on how to have balls. And the problem is if you've got cultural conditioning that says don't rock the boat, then it's a lot hard. But again, over and over again, I've seen it from my Asian students. I've seen it from the white students. I've seen it from girls that don't speak the language. I've seen it from girls who have actively protested because they say it doesn't work that way in Asia. Then they sleep with me, right? Like, right? So, like, there is something human about it. That like confidence is and boldness and having enough social intuition to know exactly where the line is and to thumb your nose at it. And what the problem is when you have a culture of that, I don't want to say conformity because I've met a lot of really extraordinary guys here, but I want to say that it's face, you know, and you guys know it better than I do, way better. It's that idea that failure will cause this reaction in others that it will be actually is harmful to you, and getting your head around failure is always an obstacle with my students. It's always an obstacle that you have to say like, look, you're gonna fail, and like a lot, and you need to become good at failing, and you need to want to fail, because if you're failing, it means that you are trying, and if you have right process and continued failure and continued involvement, then you will have gradual growth and eventual success. And a lot of Asian guys are like, fuck that, teach me to do it right now. Teach me to do it right this first time. I want to know the system, I want to know the lines.
Like they don't have to do the work themselves, they just want to, there's no hard work there.
Yeah, and that's been a challenge, but
that's what I call the 3 Fs. Failure, face, fear. And then those 3 concepts are all linked.
Totally.
You have to face the fear, but then often if it's the first time you're doing something, you're going to fail. And then you're going to have to deal with this face issue as a result of it. And that triumvirate of the 3 really are a big stumbling block for Asian guys. It's like so much so that I actually created a whole separate course, as some of you guys know, in the Academy, a special class, an elective on Asian culture and various aspects of it that hold you back.
Did I get it, by the way? Is that, would you say
Totally,
that that's,
yeah.
because
Yeah.
I wrote an email,
Yeah,
actually.
that's great.
I wrote, there's a prominent, writer on the web who I mentioned the peculiar issues that Asian men have to deal with that are distinct from Western men, and he goes, "What are those?" And I wrote this screed, and I've shown it to a few girls that I've dated, and they all said, "Yeah, you nailed it." But I'm always worried because, of course, I don't want to seem, I don't be like, "Well, let me tell you about Asian men." I can feel like a douche. So.
Yeah, no, that's the majority of Asian men.
Hey, if you like this video, let us know and subscribe to our YouTube channel.